When it comes to Family Guy, absurdity isn't a bug, it's a feature. Since its debut in 1999, the show has never shied away from pushing boundaries and serving up humor that ranges from clever satire to jaw-dropping shock value.
White guys, go!
I have high hopes for this.
Everybody else!
Phew, I thought they were coming after us.
In this list, we're counting down the most absurd episodes ever. Get ready for surreal plot twists, wild pop culture references, and antics that defy all logic. Starting off strong, we have Season 8's Episode 17, Brian and Stewie. The episode begins with, well, Brian and Stewie, of course, and the Quahog Savings and Loan Safety Deposit Vault bickering and arguing as usual. Their arguing soon evolves into a fight as Stewie claims today started off as a really nice outing, but Brian had to ruin it as usual.
None of your goddamn business, that's where. You know, today started as a really nice outing, but as usual, you had to ruin it.
Stewie, clearly done with the situation, dramatically grabs his little jacket and declares that he will be leaving now. However, things take a sudden and catastrophic turn for the worse when, out of nowhere, the vault's door suddenly slams shut behind Stewie with a deafening clang. Brian attempts to open the vault and starts screaming that the duo is locked in. However, his attempts are to no avail as it is certain now that they will have to wait till the next day to be saved. Stewie realizes that he has spoiled his diaper and tells Brian to eat it. Brian claims that he would rather shoot himself, and just then they remember that there is a gun in the vault and they both scramble towards it.
Did you just crap your diaper?
Eat it.
What?
Eat my poo, Brian.
You're out of your f***ing mind.
Well, I don't see a way around it, do you?
I would shoot myself first.
Well, how are you gonna shoot yourself? There's no gun in here.
Stewie manages to get a hold of the gun and points it at Brian, ordering him to eat his poop. However, Brian is saved as he remembers Stewie has his cell phone on him.
Wait a minute. Don't you have your cell phone with you?
You're right. Yes, hi, can you connect me to men's designer wear, please? Thank you.
What are you doing?
This will just take a second.
Give me that!
Whoa. Hey!
Sorry, he's gonna have to call you back. It's dead.
The entire episode revolves around Brian and Stewie stuck in this eerie vault with nowhere to go, with a lot of crazy stuff happening. However, this episode truly gets crazy when they both get drunk on some booze, and Stewie decides to get Brian to pierce his ear.
Left ear, right now, stick it in. Come on, dude.
But things take a turn for the worse, as his tiny hands, shaking from the booze, miss the mark entirely. Instead of a clean hole, Stewie ends up shoving the needle through a patch of skin that was definitely not meant to be pierced. After a while of being stuck, Stewie finally asks Brian why he has a gun if he doesn't plan on using it.
How come you have a gun? You're the last person anybody would expect to have a gun.
Well, that's why I keep it here, where it's safe.
That doesn't make any sense. Why have it if you're not going to use it?
And Brian admits that he keeps it just in case he wants to end it all someday, as he doesn't believe he is living a life of purpose.
I keep it in case I ever want to commit, okay?
Wow.
Having the gun here, knowing there's a way out, it helps. Oh, it's true, Stewie. Dogs are supposed to be able to instinctively live with purpose, not even to have to think about it, just born like that. But I wasn't.
The episode ends with Stewie comforting Brian, the two falling asleep, and the next day Brian carrying Stewie out of the vault. A happy ending, but a strange episode nonetheless. Next up on the list, we have Season 7, Episode 16, Peter's Progress. Peter learns from Cleveland's Jamaican psychic cousin, Madame Claude, in a palm reading that in a past life he was Griffin Peterson.
Oh my, you were a very important man. You were Griffin Peterson, the founder of the city of Quahog.
We are then transported back to England in the 1600s, where we see Griffin Peterson riding to the home of his beloved. He is greeted by her father and promptly asks for her blessing. The man is quickly convinced and invites him in. We also see Stewie, who's a king in this past life, attempt to seduce Lady Redbush and get Griffin Peterson exiled to the farthest corner of the world to get rid of his competition. Stewie manages to exile Griffin Peterson to the New World and gets ready to marry Lady Redbush.
The New World.
I declare this land Quahog.
This place is nothing but a wilderness. What are we going to do?
Griffin Peterson declares the new land Quahog, and they decide on building a new free land where everyone will have rights. However, Peter's criteria for everyone getting rights slowly devolves into no one getting rights. Lady Redbush, hearing the tragic news of Griffin Peterson's exile, wastes no time and sets sail to the New World. She finally arrives just in time, only to find Peter's new wife slowly morphing into an unbearable presence. The episode ends with a talent show to settle the fight over Lady Redbush and everyone going to Peterson's show. And finally, he and Lady Redbush live in peace and happiness forevermore. Even though the episode has a nice ending, it still touches on some really weird themes, including those of incest, with Stewie wanting to marry his own mother, and Peter actually marrying his daughter Meg, making it a strong contender for most absurd Family Guy episode. Then, we have one of the darkest and saddest episodes in all of Family Guy. Season 10's Episode 3, Screams of Silence, the story of Brenda Q, starts off with Peter and Joe finding Quagmire hanging in his house with clown porn, of all things, playing in the background. Quagmire is taken to the hospital, where outside the waiting room, we hear that Quagmire's sister's boyfriend beats her.
Not that guy. Is she still with him? Isn't he the one that beats her?
Quagmire, fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, manages to survive yet another one of his foolish stunts, even though it's clear he probably logically shouldn't have. However, Quagmire quickly realizes the real person in danger is not him, but his sister, who is stuck in an abusive relationship. We can see Quagmire visibly distressed from his encounter with Brenda's boyfriend, and honestly, it's a sight to behold. Quagmire attempts to get Lois to talk to Brenda about leaving him, but when it is to no avail, we see Peter, Lois, and Brenda discuss possible solutions, and they decide on an intervention party.
What's going on? What's all this?
Brenda, this is an intervention.
As if things couldn't get any worse during the intervention, we then find out Brenda is pregnant, and that she and her abusive boyfriend are getting married. Quagmire, in a fit of rage, suggests the unthinkable. He asks the others why they don't just kill Jeff instead. Although Joe is understandably against killing him at first, after all, he's a cop and doesn't exactly go around advocating for murder, after witnessing Jeff verbally and physically abuse Brenda once again, Joe's resolve starts to crack faster than a cheap ceramic vase. They invite Jeff to go with them on their annual midnight hunting trip, which sounds suspiciously like a trap from the get-go. However, the unexpected happens and Jeff somehow figures out their scheme, and the tables are turned when he points a shotgun at Quagmire's head.
You are pathetic. You have to bring your friends out here with you to do your dirty work?
What do you mean, Jeff?
You're gonna kill me, is that it?
Jeff takes Quagmire for a ride into the woods and gets him to stop near a deserted place. Quagmire, with his usual bravado, tells Jeff that if he had any balls, they could settle this like men.
You know, if you had any balls, you'd put that gun down and we could settle this like men.
That's awful big talk for a scrawny bastard like you.
Hey, I'm serious, man. Unless you're scared, I can take you.
The epic fight ends with Quagmire crashing his car into Jeff, presumably killing him instantly. And so, Quagmire manages to save his sister, one of the few redeeming acts of his in the entire show. Although once more we get a happy ending, the usual silly and unserious show tackles themes of extreme violence and domestic abuse, making it one of the more serious and surreal Family Guy episodes. Then, we have Season 12's Episode 6, Life of Brian. The episode starts off chaotically with Stewie and Brian being chased by a group of Native Americans. Brian explains that on a trip to Jamestown in the past, Stewie gave the Native Americans guns which were used to wipe out the Europeans.
Oh, I messed up.
You went back to 17th century Jamestown and you gave guns to the Indians, and now they're running everything.
I said I messed up, all right?
Stewie finds his return pad destroyed by bullets and decides to ask the alternate timeline Stewie for help. The duo manage to make it to the equivalent of their house. They find a new time machine and pad, then return to Jamestown. As soon as their original counterparts leave, they take back the guns and return to the proper time period. The next time we see Stewie, he is dismantling and destroying their time machine. He claims it has almost killed them multiple times, and yesterday was the last straw, so he is just gonna get rid of it. Later in the episode, Brian suddenly gets ran over by a car whilst he and Stewie are setting up a hockey game. The family rushes him to the vet. However, it is to no avail. Brian lives through his last few moments, and the family goes inside the operation room to see him one last time.
Brian, no!
I can't believe it. You really...
Damn it, Brian, you can't die!
Stewie tries to rebuild the time machine and use it to save Brian, but finds that his dealer is unable to supply him with the needed parts due to his connection being killed. Griffin family decides to get a new dog to somehow cope with Brian's loss. Even though they manage to find another talking dog named Benny, Stewie doesn't like him and tries to kill him via a heart attack. However, after a while, Stewie and Benny both realize they aren't so different after all, and they bond over the loss of their loved ones, as Benny also lost his beloved owner. The next episode on our list is Season 8's Episode 11, Dial Meg for Murder. Meg falls in love with a convict, and things take a serious turn when he shows up at her window.
Luke! What are you doing here?
I escaped, Meg. I escaped because I just couldn't bear another second away from you.
Things escalate when Joe catches not only Meg's convict boyfriend, but also takes her to jail for harboring an escaped convict. 3 months later, we finally see Meg's return. However, something's off. Meg isn't the same punching bag she once was. She has turned into a hardened delinquent, which is apparent as soon as she walks in and exclaims,
"You're all my now."
The first thing Meg does is beat up Peter for apparently being the biggest and toughest guy around.
Horn, but I believe I hold the distinction of...
My house now, bitch. Meg's antics keep evolving, and things take a serious turn when she pulls a gun on a cashier.
Oh my God, what are you doing?
Give me your money.
Here, just take this jar for the leukemia kids. I don't give it to them anyhow.
When Brian tries to help her and threatens to call the police, she tells him to do it, saying no one cares about her anyways.
Good, call the police. I want you to. What do I care if I go back to prison? Nobody cares about me anyway.
The episode ends on another good note. You know, I'm starting to see a pattern here. Meg finally feels loved after seeing an article written by Brian about her and goes back to her old punching bag self, and all is well in Quahog. This episode really changes Family Guy norms, and though it's not the darkest or craziest episode out there, it still deserves a mention for challenging the status quo where Meg is seen as a lesser human. Next, we have Season 8, Episode 1, Road to the Multiverse. The episode starts off with Stewie showing Brian a remote control that allows him to access parallel universes, depicting Quahog in the same time and place, but under different conditions. The duo embark on an adventure to explore different realities. Their first trip is to a future-like reality where Christianity never existed.
Christianity never existed, which means the dark ages of scientific repression never occurred, and thus humanity is 1,000 years more advanced.
After enjoying this universe for a while, Stewie asks Brian if he's ready to go home yet, to which Brian asks if they can explore more dimensions.
Can we see more universes?
Well, I haven't tried yet, but I don't see why not.
After being transported through a series of dimensions, such as a caveman dimension that eerily resembles the Flintstones, and even a Japanese dimension, they decide to go back home to their universe. However, for some reason, they are transported to a strange universe where everyone has two heads, one happy and one sad. Apparently, in this dimension, Stewie takes his self-obsession to new lengths.
I love you. I'm trying to get excited about it.
When they attempt to go home once more, they are now brought into an Ice Age dimension where they are stuck in ice and Stewie can't reach for the remote.
Uh-oh, I can't reach the device.
What? You're kidding.
They escape the ice, followed by a pretty weird Disney universe sequence where they all begin singing and dancing randomly.
I feel all sweet and warm and fuzzy. It seems we're in a universe where everything is drawn by Disney.
And a live-action universe, among others.
This feels weird.
Hit the button.
I wonder what that was about. They make it to a dimension where dogs are supreme and humans are their pets.
Relations.
Brian seems to like this new universe and snatches the remote from Stewie. In the scuffle that ensues, Stewie and Brian manage to break the remote entirely, ruining all their chances of ever returning home. Things take an even worse turn when Stewie bites the dog version of Peter and gets sent to the human pound. However, normal Brian, human Brian, and dog Stewie attempt to break him out and rescue him. Human Brian wants to go to normal Stewie and Brian's universe, and so he jumps in behind them. Of course, human Brian can't catch a break. Just as he is about to start his new life in a free land, he gets run over by a car. Because nothing says welcome to America quite like immediate vehicular trauma. It's been a wild ride so far, and we've covered some seriously bizarre and unforgettable moments. But trust me, there's even crazier stuff still to come. So buckle up, because the next ones are gonna get crazy. The next episode in our list is Season 2, Episode 3, Da Boom. On December 31st, 1999, at a store, a man wearing a chicken suit asks Peter if he wants a coupon. But Peter refuses, recalling an incident in which he got an expired coupon from Ernie the Giant Chicken, resulting in a destructive fistfight. The man then warns Peter that the world will end because of the Y2K problem, where every computer in the world will shut down and stop working. Sounds fun, right? Later on in the episode, we get to witness the chaos of Y2K unfold in front of us. Planes fall from the sky like poorly made paper airplanes, fires rage uncontrollably, and society crumbles into an apocalyptic wasteland. Now, in a post-apocalyptic world, Peter claims that the only things that can survive a nuclear apocalypse are cockroaches and Twinkies, and so the family leaves on a trip to the Twinkie factory. On the way, however, they meet a band of highway warriors. After running out of gas and enduring a painfully surreal encounter with Randy Newman, who's casually narrating every mundane detail of life in the most grating way imaginable, they decide to flee like their lives depend on it. They manage to reach the city that Peter promptly names New Quahog. However, slowly everyone starts getting deformed, probably due to the radiation, buddy. The people then kick Peter and his family out of New Quahog, leaving them on the road. The episode ends with the Griffin family reconciling and moving onwards to the future. Or does it? Nope. There's a bonus live-action scene where a woman tells her husband Bobby about the strangest dream of a Family Guy episode she saw, to which he replies, "What's Family Guy?" And they both stare directly into the camera.
What's Family Guy?
Next up on the list, we have Season 8, Episode 21, Partial Terms of Endearment. Family Guy is known for its dark humor and controversial episodes, but Partial Terms of Endearment takes things to a whole new level. The episode kicks off with Lois attending her college reunion at Salve Regina University, dragging Peter along for the ride. Things get interesting when Lois reunites with Naomi, her old roommate, and reveals that they had a brief lesbian relationship in college.
Let's just say Naomi and I experimented quite a bit in college.
Peter, of course, is delighted, and knowing Peter, his mind is probably jumping to fantasies of a threesome. Naomi later visits the Griffin household, but not for the reason Peter hopes. Instead, she and her husband Dale ask Lois to be a surrogate mother, explaining they've struggled to conceive. Peter, horrified at the idea of Lois being pregnant for 9 months and stealing the spotlight from him, disagrees with her decision to carry through with the request.
And I want your blessing, Peter.
You'll have my stool in your eye, and that's all you'll get. You can't have that baby.
However, Lois decides to go through with it anyway, because if there's one thing she loves more than making questionable life choices, it's ignoring Peter's opinions like he's an ad playing during her favorite show. Peter then tries to give Lois an abortion at home. When he attempts to get her to drink bleach, they start arguing. Whilst they are fighting, news comes out that Naomi and Dale have passed away in a brutal car pileup.
Devastating pileup on I-95 has injured 8 people and killed 2 others. Naomi and Dale Robinson were pronounced dead on arrival at Quahog Hospital.
Lois, now faced with the devastating loss of her friends, must decide whether to keep the baby, put it up for adoption, or have an abortion.
Let's keep it for parts!
She and Peter visit a family planning center, ready to weigh their options. However, Peter's attention is soon hijacked by an anti-abortion rally outside. One of the protesters shows him a highly manipulative and definitely misleading video, which quickly converts him into a die-hard pro-life advocate.
Not only is abortion murder, but it's also larceny, jaywalking, and securities fraud. And did you know the baby you're aborting may also have a baby inside of it that you're also aborting?
After a back and forth debate on whether or not to get the abortion, Lois addresses the family at dinner, weighing the pros and cons of a baby. And after a long, dramatic silence, Peter turns directly to the camera and bluntly declares, "We had the abortion."
We had the abortion.
Now, let's dive into one of the most bizarre and darkly comedic episodes of Family Guy. Season 7's episode 11, Not All Dogs Go to Heaven. The episode kicks off at Quahog's annual Star Trek convention, where Peter forces Meg to take a picture with a fan dressed as an alien. Except, this isn't a costume at all. It's just a guy with a serious case of the mumps. While bedridden, she watches a Kirk Cameron TV special and undergoes a sudden and complete religious transformation, becoming a born-again Christian.
This is the day that the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
Meg, what are you talking about?
I've been reborn.
This sets the stage for the episode's main conflict. Meg's newfound religious valor leads her to clash with Brian, who casually reveals that he's an atheist.
I don't believe in God.
We believe in God in this house. Atheist? That's just about the worst thing a person can be.
Horrified, Meg sets out on a mission to save his soul.
In hopes that you'll open your heart to God, I wanted to give you this cross.
No, I don't want a crucifix.
She decides the only way to save Brian is to expose him as an atheist to the entire town of Quahog, because public humiliation and a good old-fashioned witch hunt are obviously the most effective forms of conversion therapy.
People are tolerant. Well, this is nothing. Probably just a random act of violence.
Brian soon finds himself a total pariah, banned from bars and convenience stores, left without access to his precious alcohol.
I tried to rent a movie, and they threw me out. I tried to buy a pack of cigarettes, and they threw me out. But the most serious part of it is, no bar would serve me a drink. I'm starting to get pretty desperate.
In desperation, he fakes a religious conversion just to get Meg off his back. But instead of letting him drink in peace, she drags him to a book burning, where they will be burning books that go against God. Brian finally comes clean and manages to convince Meg to abandon her extremist ideologies, reminding her that blind faith without compassion turns people into exactly what religion warns against.
And what kind of God would put you in a house where no one respects or cares about you, not even enough to get you a damn mumps shot?
Begrudgingly, she sees the point and returns to her usual, less fanatical, and perpetually unlucky self. This episode may be a tiny bit tamer than the others on this list, but in true Family Guy fashion, it still manages to raise some questions with its, well, questionable writing and provoking commentary on religious norms. Next up on the list, we have Season 7's Episode 2, I Dream of Jesus. The episode starts off with the family going to Nifty 50s Diner, a 1950s themed restaurant where the waiters dress up as celebrities from the 1950s. Peter then obtains the record for the song by promising a waiter sex with his daughter Meg.
Right there. Okay, I'll do her.
Peter repeats the song over and over on the way home, and constantly every day after that in order to annoy his family, even waking up Lois, who is in bed. The final straw is reached when Peter foolishly spends over $6,000 of their savings on a clip of himself on TV saying, I dream of an America where everybody knows that the bird is the word, and then singing the song again.
I, for one, dream of an America where everybody knows that the bird is the word.
After Brian and Stewie steal the record whilst Peter is asleep and destroy it, in a fit of rage, Peter accuses everyone, saying they had a motive because he changed his will and left everything to the record.
Every one of you, you knew that I changed my will and left everything to the record, and that's why you wanted the record out of the way.
Fuming with frustration, Peter storms over to one of the town's record stores the next morning, determined to replace his precious song, only to be told that Brian and Stewie had already been there, buying and destroying every last copy of it, not only from that store, but every record store in the town.
A dog and a baby came in and bought all 63 copies.
Damn it, this is a third used record store with that same story.
Peter is frustrated, but gets distracted when he recognizes the record sales clerk as Jesus Christ. Although the clerk denies it at first, he finally comes clean.
Are you Jesus Christ?
No.
Oh my God, you are! You're Jesus Christ!
I am.
Peter believes the Messiah has returned to spread the word of the bird.
Oh my God! Jesus Christ! The Messiah! You've returned! You've returned to bring us the good word!
What word?
At dinner with the Griffins, the atmosphere is unusually tense as Jesus joins the family at their table. As they all chat, Brian, ever the skeptic, can't resist. He bluntly asks Jesus to prove he is who he says he is. The room falls silent, everyone looking at Brian like he's lost his mind. But he's serious.
All right, I'll be the one to say it. How do we know you're really Jesus? Can you perform miracles?
Jesus seems pretty happy to show off his powers, and first turns their dinner into ice cream sundaes. He also manages to enlarge Lois's breasts, making them into huge balloon-like things. Peter, not content with just a dinner conversation, takes things up a notch. He decides to take him to meet none other than the President George W. Bush.
I heard what you were saying. You know nothing of my work. How you ever got to be president of anything is totally amazing.
The scene is a bizarre mix of surreal humor and political satire. Jesus soon turns into a celebrity, kinda ironic I guess, after walking on water to retrieve a dollar bill. This is followed by a montage of Jesus and Peter having fun and doing crazy things while singing. However, soon Jesus begins to forget Peter and his newfound fame, and things take a strange turn when the family sees the news and realizes Jesus has been arrested.
Police revived and arrested the disoriented Jesus, who was quoted as saying, Jews are responsible for all the world's wars.
After Peter bails him out of jail, Jesus decides that he is not yet mature enough to stay on Earth and bids farewell to the family.
Maybe I'll try coming back in another 1,000 years, when I'm a little more mature.
Before Jesus heads out, he leaves Peter with a parting gift. Yet another record of Surfin' Bird. In second place, we have Season 10's Episode 2, Seahorse, Seashell Party. As a hurricane approaches Quahog, the Griffins prepare for its arrival. In an attempt to pass the time, Brian decides to take magic mushrooms and entrusts Stewie with his secret. As the mushrooms start to take effect, however, he begins hallucinating, leading to him involuntarily cutting off his own ear. As Stewie tries to comfort Brian and tend to his injury, Brian begins hallucinating again, seeing strange, distorted images and hearing voices that aren't really there, unable to focus on anything but the bizarre visions flooding his senses. Stewie attempts to help Brian fall asleep, Brian hallucinates that Stewie is a demon, and in this shock, he is taken into a nightmare state of consciousness. The nightmare starts off with two skeletal hands tearing apart a black cover. We see a man and bird hybrid with a fancy mustache rejoin the upper and lower half of his head via tentacles and vomit out a rainbow. Brian emerges from within the rainbow vomit and gets up. Behind him, a bug version of Meg whispers to him,
Brian!
When he starts looking for her, he finds a naked Peter being cooked on a spit. Startled, he looks around only to see an alien-looking Lois ask him if he wants to have sex. His body morphs into this weird, deflated thing and gets popped by a running strawberry. From within emerge a bunch of tiny Brians and a lot of blood. Quagmire can be seen as a gargoyle gobbling up all but one of the now regular-sized Brians.
Slip me some tongue.
Did you try the chicken, buddy?
Brian continues to hallucinate for the rest of the segment, and it just gets more bizarre by the minute. The world around him starts to blur, and he falls into a pit of lava. He hears Stewie's voice call out for him, and he wakes up slowly.
Brian.
Finally, after Brian has calmed down, Stewie takes him downstairs for some water, effectively ending this subplot. The rest of the episode revolves around Meg, but you don't want to hear about that, do you? But let's get back to the fun part. Now, moving on to the final, and what we believe is the most absurd episode of Family Guy, we have Season 13's Episode 12, Stewie is Enceinte. This one takes the craziness to a whole new level. In this episode, when Stewie wants to hang out with Brian, he's met with a series of excuses. Brian is too busy. Stewie, with his typical flair for drama, is immediately struck by the idea that their friendship might be drifting apart. After seeing Joe and Bonnie enjoying their time with Susie, Stewie becomes convinced that the key to mending his relationship with Brian is to have a child together. He decides to pitch the idea to Brian over dinner, not expecting much resistance. However, Brian is acting a bit off, glued to his phone and texting non-stop. He even cuts Stewie off mid-sentence, leaving in a hurry and claiming he has a date.
This is serious, Rupert. I'm losing him. If we're going to fix this relationship, we need a baby, and we need it now.
Stewie, in his twisted brilliance, manages to acquire some of Brian's DNA and, in his typical outrageous fashion, uses it to create a machine designed to impregnate himself with Brian's genetic material. Stewie then shows Brian what he did, handing him a pregnancy test and simply exclaiming, "We are pregnant," before sobbing over the fact that in 18 years the baby would move away.
We're pregnant! Oh my god! And in 18 years he's going to move away!
As time passes, Stewie goes through the pregnancy stages and has Brian take him to the doctor for prenatal care, clothes shopping, and photographs of his pregnancy. At McBurgertown, Stewie suddenly exclaims, "It's happening!" Brian watches in horror as Stewie's water breaks and his pants get wet. He and Brian try to get to the hospital as soon as possible. But when they don't make it, Brian is forced to deliver the baby himself in his car. In the end, we see Brian and Stewie with not just one child, but a whole litter of part human, part dog babies. After finding out that most of the kids have birth defects, and some dying, they realize that they aren't quite ready for parenthood. So, they do the logical thing and dump the kids at the animal shelter. A fitting end. And there you have it, folks. The most absurd, ridiculous, and downright creepy Family Guy episodes that are guaranteed to leave you both baffled and in stitches. From alternate realities where dogs rule to way too much time spent on bodily fluids. Well, that's about it for this video. See you guys in the next one.